I've gone through many steps defined in the documentation here to configure Eclipse, how the instructors will expect it to be for the semester. So now I'm going to continue on with this kind of step 8 and create a project and start seeing how things look. So when you have an empty workspace, there'll be these links, but that's really only for the first time. So what you can do is, as the steps show, you can just always rely on the new thing to be there. And you just want a new Java project. So it's here, you can find it there. You can also find it under File, which I think the file part's not shared, but you can find new Java project. You can always go to Other, it brings up a huge menu, you can find it. There's unfortunately, there's a lot of redundancy in where certain actions are placed, so different people may expect it to be in different places. Let me just do it this way. All right. And so then as suggested in our step here, I'm going to name this who can read fast? Pretty much anything. So why don't we call this HW1 to match our figure. All right. And I want to see that it already says create separate folders for sources and class files. That should be my default. If the other was selected, I can go and fix that setting by clicking on the link here. And then one thing that may happen is occasionally Eclipse will try to default this module setting, and depending on the size of your screen, this might even be scrolled out of view. You might have to drag your window a bit higher up, or even possibly scroll down or something to reach this setting. But we actually pretty much never want this in the context of 159. So we want to set it up about like that. Once we get those things set where it has a name, it's going to use the default location, and that it's using our default layout, which should be separate folders, then I'll just go ahead and click Finish. Having done that, we should have a view that looks about like this, okay? And so just to call out a few specific items. One thing is that we have a project that has the name that we gave it. It would be important to let you know that you probably should not include spaces in these project names. They will potentially cause issues in later assignments if you use spaces in the names of your projects. When you expand that project that you created, you should see something about Java, being available, and then you should also see that there's a source directory here. The other thing that I want to point out is that right now, the way my Eclipse is arranged is that at the bottom, I have these couple tabs, especially the problems view is shown there. On the left, it specifically says Package Explorer rather than whatever else it could say. And then on the right, it has the outline. Which views are showing and how they're arranged, Eclipse groups together in what they call a perspective. And right here, right now, there's this funny J, and if I hover over it, it says Java. That's the Java perspective. Later in the semester, we'll also use the debug perspective, and we can switch back and forth between them by clicking icons up here. It's possible for you to rearrange things here, and sometimes those rearrangements you may come to regret, and so you can always go to the window setting and find your perspective and tell it to reset the perspective. There's more about this on the same page here. Having added this project, the other thing that you would typically need to do whenever you're beginning a new Java project is that you would need to right click on it, and down here under check style, you would want to activate check style as well. So I think with that, that's pretty much everything that would be necessary. One last thing to check, I suppose, is as you right click somewhere on your project and you let it know that you want a new class, it will often try to default your class to being in some particular package, maybe HW1 to match the name of this project or something like that. And rarely, until we specifically ask you to do otherwise, will you want the package to say anything. It may give you a warning about the use of the default package being discouraged, and that's just fine. They can discourage us all day. So in here, I'll put some kind of driver class to just give an example. And in this case, I might be very happy for them to go ahead and put a main method in it for me automatically. So I'll just say finish. And I can see right away that there's some yellow. That's great news. That must mean that I have my check style configured correctly. And so it's annoyed that I'm not following the specifications required by check style for our class. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a version. So for me, let's see, let's put today's date. I did this ages ago, so obviously today's date is 2022, and I did this before last semester ended even. So this is how we call it. And then let's see, we should say something about what this is going to do. This driver for me to check my Eclipse settings, including the check style configuration. All right, spell your words sometimes. There you go, friends. Okay, and then I'll just save. And if you noticed, it just reformatted the file for me because if we set that save action earlier, right now, if I hover, it's telling me that, hey, this is not good enough here. Is either I'm going to say this is unused in this example for that. And then I should go ahead and say specifically that this method is the default entry point for this project. That's why we would put a main method, for example, and go ahead and save. So now I see that there were check style issues, so I know that check style is activated. And then I see that now that I have kind of completed a couple of the things that it's annoyed about, those problems have gone away. So I'm pretty confident that my check style is configured well. I've got my separate source directory rather than having them combined like I showed earlier. And I see that my class is showing under the default package and that there's no module info.java down here.